Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to International Affairs, broadcasting from the SATV's Gulshan studio here in Dhaka, Bangladesh. I am Shamsul Pantho and I shall be bringing you the most latest updates from around the world. Before I do so, let me introduce my panel here in the studio. We have Mr. Ali Ahmed, who is of course Member Customs of the National Board of Revenue. I welcome you onto this program, sir. Alongside, we will have from District of Columbia, Washington, our geopolitical correspondent Norman Floyd Barnes, whom I want to begin this segment of the show today. But before I do so, let me give the very updated news. El Mencho, the very popular drug lord, has been killed. According to various news outlets. Of course, he was the leader of the new generation Jalisco cartel, as known as El Mencho. His name is quite popular, and I'm sure that the U.S. Had provided intelligence support to the Mexican government in a major operation that resulted in his death. And because of his death, we have some wave of violence that has over 250 blockades reported across 20 Mexican states. This is the latest of this news. Of course, we have another Iran meeting scheduled in Geneva, which is going to take place on Thursday. But I want to begin with Mexico and how the United States is dealing with this issue, as I know that the White House correspondent Caroline Leavitt has also provided an update for its media. I want to know more from Norman Floyd Barnes, joining us from Washington, D.C.
Good morning and welcome from Washington, D.C. Today we wake up here in the city called Washington with the news about the drug cartel king killed by the military and local police in Mexico. The United States State Department issue a statement stating that all American interests should take shelter in place in Mexico because the violence is starting to get extreme and starting to increase. The United States has high praise for Mexico, the government, on the successful taking down of the drug lord, El Mencho. The intelligence was provided by the United States and also other support outside the country. But this was a total Mexican operation, and our government has high praise for the successful conclusion of this mission. At the same time, we had a incident on Sunday in Florida at the president's retreat called Mar-a-Lago, and a gentleman, a young man from North Carolina with a shotgun and mask, breached the northern gate of the site and was killed by the Secret Service and the sheriff office there. They're still investigating the actual root cause of this, but he was stopped inside the perimeter, told to put his weapons down. He did not, and he was killed. The president was not at this location this weekend. This is a place where he goes usually on the weekend to get away from the Washington area. But this is now considered another attempt on the president's life, and the investigators are looking for the motives for this.
Of course, very important updates coming from Norman Floyd Barnes. And addition to this news regarding this suspect who was killed at Mar-a-Lago, he was carrying a gun and a fuel can, a shotgun and a fuel can, according to the agency statement. I know that this kind of stories do carry some kind of importance. It shows how the people are addressing the administration, if not how one can cause a nuisance to the established order. I want to come back into the studio with Ali Ahmed. We were talking with Norman regarding the killing of a drug lord, El Mencho, whose cartel is actually involved in the trafficking of fentanyl, a drug, a substance that the U.S. administration has been over the years trying to actually stop completely into their communities. So it is a win for all, at least both Mexican and the U.S. sides. Thousands of U.S. tourists are now stranded inside this wave of violence that captures entirety of Mexico. What is your observation regarding this new statement?
Well, these drug lords are the kingpins of the drug business all over the world. And Mexico, we know, is a very great hub of drug trafficking. They are so powerful that the state authorities often were defeated to fight the war, and they couldn't do anything. But then Donald Trump, despite all his other faults and the methods of his doing it, seems bent upon destroying the drug business, although he very often crosses the limits of his powers and state powers. But anyway, this must be one of those steps that the Mexican authorities, the state authorities I mean, were kept informed, and they must have been well tuned, and the intelligence is supposedly transferred from the American authorities, and there was a successful hit, and so the drug lord is killed. And judging from the severe commotion that is taking place in Mexico, one understands how big an importance he used to wield and how strong is his position in the country. He is an anti-law, that means unlawful, outlaw, harmful to society and all this, but still lot of the whole country, Mexico is a huge country, seems to have gone through a cataclysmic experience with his death. This also explains how this drug business is there in those countries, including Mexico. So this seems to have been a good riddance.
Of course, it is somewhat of a good riddance, but it adds on to the story that we know. Even while Venezuela was targeted, we understood that some of the narratives pushed towards these drug trafficking vessels. Drug trafficking as a whole is a very important problem for Latin America to understand, and today the entire world takes its attention to Mexico. We know that more than 14 million US tourists enter the neighboring country in Mexico just as of last year. And I want to ask this question to Norman Floyd. Given the number of American tourists inside Mexico and the proximity, the neighbor to United States of America, this kind of story coming out to the big screens, it's important because earlier on in this year we've seen how drug trafficking vessels were targeted by the US forces in the Caribbean. So I want to understand the implications of tourists, and of course right now almost 20 of the 32 states are seeing violence. We are seeing several businesses being affected, buses being torched. The entire nation of Mexico is going through a turmoil. All of this while US tourists are still stranded in some of the states of Mexico. What is the implications that you see for the coming days? Would the relationship between Mexico and the US get better with the killing of El Mencho? Your observations, Norman Floyd Barnes.
Yes, thank you for the question. The actual killing of the head of this drug cartel will cause significant violence within the country of Mexico. The government over there has stated that everyone, including U.S. citizens, should shelter in place. Schools has been canceled. Businesses, government function has been told to shelter in place while this wave of violence continues across the country of Mexico. We do a lot of daily trafficking back and forth. People come over there for businesses, come over there for services, come over there for leisure activities. This is going to have a profound effect on our border patrol. As you know, we are in a shutdown, a strike, basically a budget shutdown for Department of Homeland Security, which include Border Patrol. They're restricting people from coming in using the global entry because of the budgetary cuts. This is going to put a maximum stress on the Border Patrol in the area of Texas, in the other parts of the United States, to have direct entry into Mexico. So the lines are going to be longer, traffic is going to be more intense, and the drug lords and the drug cartel is going to be impacting violence and difficulties for the government in Mexico and also at the Border Patrol. So right now, everything is on high alert because of the sensitivity of the situation, because of the traffic flow. The economic situations will have a temporary impact on this, but the word is that we'll get through it. But remember, the drug cartel is very strong. They have a lot of impact. So we can expect additional issues in Mexico and some on the border states of the United States. So the United States are not involved with the situation, but they are prepared to address it. So that means stand by. We may see some issues in Mexico, a coordinated response with the United States and Mexico to address the original issue with the cartel. As you mentioned, as we mentioned before, the cartel was one of the issues, one of the reasons why we went into Venezuela and the Caribbean. Mexico was on that list. So now you may see a more pronounced involvement and response from our resources, our law enforcement, our military resources around and close to Mexico. Stand by, new story.
Of course, it's important to understand because the FIFA World Cup of 2026 also would be the Jalisco's capital, Guadalajara, which will host several matches according to the FIFA World Cup schedule as well. But it was turned into a ghost town on Sunday night as civilians hunkered down. It is one of those places where people were expected to have a lot of tourism. Of course, El Mencho had a $15 million bounty on his head from the United States. So this comes in as a series of people involved in narco trafficking being cracked down by this U.S. administration. Your comments before I can go for a break, sir.
When a big tree falls, the smaller ones below it also gets crushed, but there's nothing doing about it. You can't avoid felling the tree if it becomes rogue. And this gentleman, the drug lord of Mexico, was harmful to society, though he to himself and to his gang was a savior, was a king, sort of. But the demolition of these people, reducing them to nothing is what is needed in the world. But often Donald Trump does it in the way which is not acceptable, but this time nothing much against him has been heard. He has been more or less silent and all that. So I think it is a good riddance, but then it is the economic affair, and he has gone, many drug lords have gone before him and will go after him. The trade will not stop unless the economic causes are addressed, and the economic causes are easy money and poverty and all that, and also encouragement of the people of the producing countries, because they all get enriched by this. So all this, a lot of things have been tried, but it could not be stopped till now.
Of course, very important updates coming from Mr. Ali Ahmed in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take a short break, but after the break we have discussions regarding Ukraine and whether or not we're living in World War III. Do stay tuned on International Affairs. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Pantha.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen,
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
With presidency of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Pantha.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan
Opening an open war conflict with them.
Testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing.
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen.
really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of... Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on International Affairs. Today I'm joined by Mr. Ali Ahmed in the studio, while we have Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C. I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes regarding the Ukraine-Russia war, the long 4-year running long war. And of course, there is a news that is coming out from the BBC in which Volodymyr Zelensky is telling the BBC that Putin has started World War III and must be stopped. He's of course talking with Jeremy Bowen, the international editor for BBC from Kiev, and we understand that some of this talk between the two sides of Volodymyr Zelensky and the BBC reporter, in which he says that Putin has started World War III and it's unavoidable even after 4 years of this war that is going on. And of course, the anniversary is in the horizon. From 2 days or from tomorrow, it'll be on the 5th year. So as well, I want to ask Norman Floyd Barnes, what is your analysis regarding this issue? Zelensky is coming to international media in stating that Vladimir Putin had started World War III. I want to understand more from Norman Floyd Barnes.
Greetings. The comment by the Ukrainian president has again arose and has come to the attention of the world. Zelensky is stating that Putin is starting World War III, meaning that this protracted war, this is what we call a trench war, a very dug out in the trenches type of conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This war is looking like it's going into the 5th year. There are no changes from the field. The commanders are stating that nothing has changed. It's just a trench by trench type of situation, and it's an issue of land. Soldiers are engaging, but the impact, as you know, is on the civilian populations. The use of drones, AI technology is increasing, but people are still losing their lives. The soldiers are still dying, and this endless conflict does not appear to be closing anytime near the future. Yes, there will be conversations going on. Yes, there's negotiation. Yes, they're talking about ceasefire, but the war is still going on, and the average person and the soldier are not going to see any type of conclusion to this conflict this year. We're seeing right now how things are going. So here we go again. This endless conflict goes into another year, and the trench warfare is continuing, and the impact of this is not going to change the results of what's happening in Europe, and also how the United States involvement is going to be.
Important analysis and breakdown from Norman Floyd, and I want to focus way back into the studio with Mr. Ali Ahmed. You were hearing Norman Floyd Barnes in some of the comments as we step into another year of conflict between these two sides. Even in a map, we can see that Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and Moscow, the capital of Russia, is very close by if land and territory were to be seen. And much of the eastern side of Ukraine still remain under Russian control. The fighting is progressive, but there has not been major news coming out except for the fact that there has been continuous drone strikes, missile barrages towards Kiev and Lviv as well, very bordering Poland. So that is important in my understanding. I want to know how you're seeing this as it approaches.
As we heard from the BBC this morning, it was a night's news, but it came in the morning. Zelensky was talking in their language, Ukrainian, and the translation was hard. He said this is the third world war that Putin has started, because there was overnight sort of not carpet bombing yet, but serious bombing throughout the entire capital city, as we came to know from his speech. So that is a very difficult thing. But at that time, the Jeremy Bowen that you referred to, at one point he asked the president, what about this 20% giving to them, and you remain happy with this and no fighting? Zelensky gave an answer that it's not a question of 20%. The question is, it is our land and this is our identity. We cannot part away with this and live alone. This is our culture, our land, our identity. So we will not part. So with this attitude on this side, the Russian aggressiveness on the other, no relenting in that. It seems that they are now entering, as the fifth year is coming in a couple of days, entering what is in warfare called war of attrition. They will keep on fighting till at last one cannot fight anymore, and that would be the end of the war. But then Zelensky and his country, Kiev, the capital, Ukraine, being weaker, with Russia the larger army, it could easily have been like that. But there are aids from other countries, and the resolve of the Ukrainians is very great. There was a survey released yesterday. They still, by a majority of those, they say, no, we will keep on fighting. And they kept on fighting, and there is talk now that there should be some soldiers, some army people or other branches of the armed forces would be sent to that country, starting at the beginning as a non-combatant force. But they will turn into combatant forces, and others will be added. So I don't see any end in sight, although it is an unequal war. But then Russia is also severely harmed and is almost limping. But I don't know if Europe joins and no nuclear war begins. I don't know where it goes really. Now a war of attrition.
Of course, in a long-standing war, actually no side is the winner. I believe there is NATO support for Ukraine, and not only so, NATO has been a topic of discussion worldwide, even when it came to Greenland. I want to have a last comment from Norman Floyd Barnes. We know that NATO and the allied European forces did show their support towards Ukraine. However, the US started focusing on the Arctic Circle, more or less Greenland for its rare earth minerals, and ever since then this Ukraine-Russia war has been sidelined to some degree. Of course, we still understand, even as in the studio Ali Ahmed says, that Ukrainians will continue to fight until they have understanding of their land and territory, which has 20% have been occupied by the Russian armed forces in the eastern Ukraine. Your comments for the future of this war, and how do you see it ending? Do you think that there is any kind of winner from these two sides battling it out? Norman Floyd.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. The situation in Ukraine is one of attrition. How long can they last? They will last as long as they're being supplied by the Western world, the United States, Europe, and whatever weapons, arms, support, intelligence, all of that stuff. So that is allowing Ukraine to live another day, fight another moment. Russia on the other side is hell bent on basically taking over the land, taking over the country, and fighting this war as long as Putin is in charge. So this is something that is not going away. You have one who want to continue the fight, continue to assault on the infrastructure, to continue the endless war, the endless battle, while the other part will fight as long as they're getting supplies and equipment and support from the European, this term situation right now. The United States has delegated this over to Europe and NATO to deal with, while the United States tries to deal with the Western Hemisphere, Venezuela, and other parts of the world. So right now, we have supply coming in, equipment coming in from the Western to allow Ukraine to participate in this conflict. And Russia is basically continuing this conflict because of Putin. Its economy is struggling. The resources and the people are very concerned about how long they can go on this thing. So basically what we're looking at is how one side wants to be, how long will they want to engage in it, and the other side is how long can they accept and defend itself dealing with this. So until that point comes to a period, we will have this conflict. So it could be tomorrow, it could be next year. We can see a couple years from now this situation continue. It just basically we're dealing with a battle of egos right now. There's no reason to have this war except for the egos of few people.
Of course, important updates coming from Norman Floyd Barnes. I must thank him for his valuable insights and contributions here on the program today, as well as my studio guest, Mr. Ali Ahmed, for joining in and commenting about several of these issues of international significance. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to finish today, which is the February 23rd. It is recognized in international circles and including in contexts relevant to the United Nations as World Understanding and Peace Day. It's observed to annually promote harmony, goodwill, and understanding among different cultures and backgrounds. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today. I shall see you on tomorrow's International Affairs.